What up, brother?
Yo, dude.
What is going on today, man?
Oh, it's a tough time for many, but at least for us in this world, feels like
Yes.
the tides are turning a little bit. I know it's not
Sure.
turning everywhere, but
Sure.
it feels like the tides are turning in terms of somewhat normalcy in our life, which is weird to
It is
experience some kind of
that's actually weird in itself. I mean,
right.
at least we're getting some forward momentum back to a life that we knew.
Correct.
So let's keep moving forward, and it's been
Focusing on the
great to be
positive.
back to work.
Yes.
So let's keep doing it.
Well, and one of the benefits of being back to work is the people we work with. And we're joined by one of those people today.
We are.
A fairly new face, a new hunk of meat on the show.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about this guy. I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't
you
know
know
if we
as
should bring
Brando
him on.
Corbin on GH. We got Johnny Wactor. Hey, dude.
How's
Johnny.
it going, guys?
What's going on, dude? How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. I am doing great. I got up super early this morning, got a climb in, and then I went and did a little workout afterwards. So
Yeah. So let's
Climb is a workout, is it not?
it is. But it was a short session today, and it was getting hot.
So where do you go climb? I mean, is it not? You're outdoors, not indoors.
Yeah, outdoors right now. All the indoor climbing gyms are closed for obvious reasons.
So are you free climbing?
I am free climbing, but on a bouldering level. So I don't climb anything above 25, 30 feet. It's usually between about 15 and 20 feet.
And you live in Los Angeles, correct?
That's correct.
So where do you find boulders to boulder?
Well, you'd be surprised. You go up to Chatsworth, which is, right now with not so much traffic, it's about 25 minutes from my front door.
I used to live near there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they've got
right up at the 118. There's a ton of rocks up there.
Exactly. Yeah, there's
Right.
like a little horse farm next door, and they've got some bouldering there that's been established since the 1980s. But yeah, I go there. That's usually my I go there for 25 minutes, and that's my gym. If I want to go a weekend trip, there's a bunch of other places within an hour, 2 hours.
Okay. So falling from 20 feet or 15 feet, does that make a difference?
Yes. Mostly,
Yes.
in the head too. You get up there, you're looking down, and you're like, that's not too bad. You get up there, you start to over grip, those fingers start sweating. You're like, I better not fall.
Oh my
so
gosh,
you don't
dude,
have
that's
any
crazy.
ropes ever.
No ropes, but we do carry around. They're called crash pads. So it's like this big backpack, and mine stretches out when you fold it out. It's about 4 by 6 feet.
Okay.
And the foam's about 5-6 inches thick.
Okay. So where does that go?
So if you fall, you like press a button and it expands?
No. That just goes right on the ground underneath you. You just kind of like, all right, this is probably the place I'm going to climb. So if you fall, you try to fall there.
Yeah, but Johnny,
Oh,
that doesn't
you
seem
get on
like
the ground?
that doesn't seem like enough ground cover for guessing where you're going to fall.
Yeah.
Well,
You're right. That's why,
Do you try to like flying squirrel it in the air when you fall? Like,
I try to land, feet first and absorb the shock. I save the flying squirrels for the pool.
All right.
Oh.
Have you fallen?
Oh, many times.
From how high?
The highest I've fallen / jumped down was my waist was probably at about 23 feet.
Oh, Johnny, my gosh, man, you got to be careful, dude. Please.
I do my best.
I know.
Why'd you measure from your waist?
I don't know. I don't know. There's no method behind that. That's not like a rule of thumb.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like a mountain climbing method.
Yeah.
So I guess about 20 feet from the bottom of my feet.
Dude,
Okay.
that's high. Anyway,
And you
let's
said
get past
fall
this.
/ jump.
Oh.
Have you ever been in a predicament where you're like, man, I just got to jump. I got to get off of this thing.
Yeah. So usually, if you're working a harder problem, that's above your pay grade per se, you usually break it down. You work it in segments. So let's say, you get the first segment down, but then that next segment, which is the hardest part, might be which is called the crux. It might have some particularly hard moves there. And then, so once you've been if you've been working on this problem for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you start to, experience muscle exhaustion. Your fingers start to kind of get, on fire. And then if you've gone up there, you go for a move that you hadn't gotten before, but then you find out like, holy crap, my muscles are spent and I can't go for this next move because if I go and miss, I'm going to fall awkwardly. So you just kind of look down and jump safely down, safely as you can.
Wow. I love that the process of mountain climbing or bouldering is called a problem, because it certainly would be for me.
Yeah. And we would be talking about 35 seconds for Bradford.
Yeah. No, yeah. It sounds like a cool thing to try, but I know from the exercise, the brisk walks that I take from my exercise, that wouldn't help me much climbing a rock.
It's a different level of exercise.
So I know we're talking about rock climbing way too much, but
this is genius.
This is amazing, actually.
This is great.
So do you have
it's
a bit
our
of
outdoorsy episode?
Yeah. Do you have a bit of adrenaline rush? Is that why you do that?
I would say so. Back in the day, in my crazier years, I used to break into construction sites and I would climb cranes and I would
parkour.
I'm not necessarily parkour. I wouldn't ever call myself a parkour athlete, but I watched this documentary called "Don't Look Down," and it follows these two guys where they climb object buildings and cranes and stuff that are 500 to 1,000 feet tall, and they're doing like jumping from like ledge to ledge and like doing one-handed hangs, and my palms are like sweating, and I was like, I got to do this. Go figure. So I would go around on my bicycle because I didn't have a car at that time, and I would scout construction sites in LA, and I would climb over in the night dressed in black, and I would climb these cranes and do like free hangs and stuff.
Wow, dude.
Would you film it, or was it just for your own adrenaline rush?
I've got a couple GoPro videos.
Yeah.
Where they're like, it's like looking down. One of them's like, I'm about 500 feet up, and it was my very first one. I broke in and I got chased by one of the security guards. I didn't know security guards watched the site, and I hid for about 30 minutes until he disappeared. And I found the base of the crane, climbed up, and the hardest part is climbing up there. Your stairs, it's just stairs going up 400, 500 feet. I don't do that anymore though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
good. Thank you, Johnny.
This is early in the podcast to get into this, but what is your relationship with death? Like,
should that be the Grim Reaper behind you and not Christian Bale?
It should be.
It seems like you're very comfortable, like walking the line there.
Man, I guess I don't think about it too much. When I was climbing the cranes, I was kind of like, well, if you think about it, if I go up there and I just hang from it, it's essentially the same thing as doing a pull-up, but you're just 500 feet up, so don't mess up. So I don't really think about dying, but when you're hanging there, especially that first time, you're like, this might have been dumb.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, you did have 500 steps to figure that out.
500 choices to turn around.
Yeah. 1, this might be dumb. 2, this might be dumb. 3, 498. I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
Anyway.
Naively optimistic, to say the least.
That's amazing.
Everything I do.
All right. Well,
hey,
I love that mindset, and let's go back and hear about your start, so we can maybe figure out why the heck you got to that mindset. I love it.
Sure.
What built that mindset? So where are you from, dude?
I'm from South Carolina. I grew up in a town called Somerville, and then we moved out a little further into a rural area called Jedburgh. So I grew up in the woods, suburban, and then the woods, and then I went to college at Charleston, which was about 40 minutes away. So I tell everybody Charleston, South Carolina, because they're most familiar with that area.
Yeah, that's a cool town.
So growing up in the woods like that was most of your recreation, like outdoorsy, if you will. Like, were some of your adult habits built during that time?
Yeah, I would say so. I was a woods kid and a water bug, man. So I always grew up like, my dad had a boat, so like a little John boat, and we would go out shrimping, and we'd be swimming in the rivers, and my parents taught me and my brothers to swim really, really early on. I was 3 and I was, swimming. And so we would, we grew up in the water, and then in the woods, it's like my middle brother and I were about 2 years apart. So, we were, playing, Army, and
Sure.
had pellet guns, probably far too young. And then,
Of course.
we always had friends or relatives that were hunting. And so, we grew up hunting and just, very much just kind of outdoors, and sports and stuff. So I was always outside.
Awesome.
Video games were, when those came out, that was, I love Sega Genesis, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
PlayStation, all that stuff.
Sega changed it for us for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, growing up in rural South Carolina, at what point did you start thinking of? At what point did the arts kind of creep in?
Yeah, that's a good question. My family was big into this church, Somerville Baptist Church, and so I, grew up in the church and going there every Sunday, and they put on this huge show every Christmas called the Singing Christmas Tree, and it would run for like 3 weeks, and like people from all over the state would come down and see the show, and so I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I got to be one of the little shepherd boys, and it was a big thing. It was this huge production. Yeah. And, no speaking lines or anything, but, I'm one of the little shepherd boys, and I, go up and I visit, I think, baby Jesus. And so that was my like first time on stage, and I liked that. And I was always, entertaining. I had, a big family, a bunch of cousins and stuff, and we would make like, movies and put on dance shows and skits and like, diving board shows and stuff. And, so I think that was my first time, like, I was like, I like to perform.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. And then, did some plays, in elementary school. I went to an art school in middle school.
What kind of art school?
Yeah.
It was all art. So, I got in for visual art. So I was really big into, drawing. I love pencil sketching. That was probably my first like creative outlet, outside of like sports, I guess. I love to draw, not much of a painter. But I got in through my like, my portfolio that I had when I was, coming out of 5th grade, going into 6th grade. And
portfolio, that's amazing.
Yeah, I just like show them, like, I was like, hey, I won an art competition in 3rd grade and 4th grade, and showed all these pencil sketches, and they were like, oh, great. And then so I get there, and get this, so like there's visual arts, you've got theater arts, you got dance, you got handbells, singing, you have all these arts, and then handbell,
like really like kind of like xylophone stuff, or like. No, it's not like those, those where you get all the bells set up at the table and you ring a separate one. That one?
Yes.
People like going to school.
Sizes. People wearing like the gloves.
Really? That was like an independent like lane of study?
Yes, dude. And of course, there weren't like handbell solos. It was like an ensemble of,
Bradford, don't judge.
I know.
Stop judging people who play handbells. That's not nice.
I'm just like, I have this, I don't know. I just have this vision of like a 5th grade girl with like a little bob and like, just like, take it, Carol. And she's just,
crushing on the handbell solo.
Yeah. So wait a second. At what point in your elementary school did you go, you know what? This like regular school is not for me. I need to go to art school. Like what was do you know what I mean? Or was that the school to go to in your area?
It was, so this school, its inception was, it was the very first year. So I got in the very first class. So it was this brand new school, and it was opening up to, create an art school in my school district, for 6th and 7th graders. So my mom and dad were like, oh, this is going to be a great school. You should get involved in this. And so that was the way. And I was like, I love drawing. So I got in for that. So get this. So after my first year there, the theater kids at this school were the rock stars.
Yeah.
The theater kids were the rock stars. We would get out, and like you would get out like every month, and you'd go see these performances from the theater. Like you got to see performances from every art court. But the theater, like the teachers there wrote their own sketches and comedy performances, and they were so funny. And I was like, I want to be in there. And so they opened it up to where they had 2 kids. They would allow 2 kids from each grade in school to transfer art course. And so I auditioned for it and I got in, thankfully.
Awesome,
Wow.
man.
What a unique opportunity in,
Yeah,
in
right?
a somewhat small town to have that kind of structure for kids. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it-
pretty
is
unique.
is the school still around?
I believe it is. Yeah. Rawlings Middle School of the Arts, unless they've changed the name. And I still keep in touch with a bunch of my teachers from there. It was
And that
lot
was a
of
public
great-
school?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
That is so
that's
cool.
great.
I mean, because
Great.
nowadays, you know, with the way things are and budgets and all, like sometimes the arts doesn't get that kind of lift.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's you know, and oftentimes it's in smaller communities that don't have as much tax revenue where they don't have those opportunities. So that's really cool that you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about high school? How'd you transition from that to high school, and what was that like? Were you in theater? Did you do anything there?
I did. I was. And I think, I think there is a common fear, like, when you're like middle school, going into high school, going into, your freshman year, you're like, I want to be cool, and fit in and stuff. And so I definitely had that, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a theater kid,
Yes.
And it's a huge school. Like I went to the biggest high school in the state. There was like 3,400 kids.
Wow. That's gigantic.
How close was that to you where you lived?
Oh, like down the street, man. I was probably 4 miles.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So, but you weren't in one of like the big cities so how come it was so big? Just not another school in the area?
My theory is that, so my school, have you seen Varsity Blues?
Oh yeah. Not in a while. Yeah.
So like Bud Kilmer, he's like this, football coach who's like, he kind of runs the town. So we had this coach named John McKissick, who had been, the head coach of our football team for like 50 years and had won like multiple state championships. He is still to this day the winningest football coach on any level. He's got like 750 wins or something crazy.
Wow.
So I think that because he was the coach, he wanted to have the biggest school, so he had the biggest pool of athletes.
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
That stuff happens in the South, man.
Of course
I
it
see,
does.
okay.
That's
Sure.
football, baby. Come on.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
like football, baby.
That's
I'm
right.
from a small town in New Hampshire. That doesn't make any.
Yeah.
I have no feel for it.
They're still singing and dancing in the woods there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No football there.
So how did the high school experience go for you? Was it, did those fears of fitting in, did that actually come to fruition, or did you handle it okay?
I think I handled it okay. I stuck with theater because I knew I liked it, and there was, I think, always this kind of like dream where like, I want to be an actor. Like I wanted to be on movies. I dreamed in movies. I dreamed of, being an actor and being in film.
Really? So you were connecting it. Was it being in the school and having other kids that had those same aspirations that led you to think, oh, here's a track for me to then become an actor professionally? Because sometimes from those areas, if there isn't someone else that's done it before you, if there isn't a laid out track to do it, and you're not geographically close to New York or LA. And so like sometimes the way to get there is not laid out. So the idea of getting there is somewhat fuzzy. So like for you, was because of that school, did they kind of connect you to the professional world of it a little bit, or?
I wouldn't say they connected me to the professional world. What it did was it helped me discover like, this is something I really enjoy doing. Like I had fun. I looked forward to going to school, because it wasn't just learning, it was learning and performing. And I got to, my teachers were fun and they made learning fun. And, I just found a real joy at that school and a real joy of acting. And, in high school, there really wasn't a professional guidance, because there wasn't anything, filming. There's no film industry in South Carolina at that time.
Right.
They film a couple movies there, like in Charleston, it was a big deal. And, you'd go like, oh, I'm going to be an extra, and
Sure.
Yeah.
but like, as far as like, how do you make a career out of it? My idea was like, there's movie stars and then every other actor's poor, which is kind of true. But, I learned, or at least for a little while, but then, it wasn't until college where I met some connections. They started filming a show in the area where I was like, oh, I can make a living doing this. Like, that's all I want to do.
So, but you went to college. Did you, when you were making the decision to go to college, was it about furthering your study in acting?
It was, but I think, I still didn't have, I was like, it didn't feel like a safe bet, you know, and my parents, I think, you know, they were like, hey, like, you know, if you want to, you know, study theater, like make sure you major in something else as well as a fallback degree. You know, that was always kind of the pitch. And I initially wanted to go to NYU, which I saw at Bradford that you went there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was a swimmer at the time, and I was good, and but I was still kind of like, I don't know if I want to swim in college or not, but I knew I wanted to get into NYU. That was my dream school. I wanted to get in there and go to Tisch.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a contemporary monologue or a classic monologue. I had, you know, experience on stage and doing plays, but like I wasn't prepared to get into Tisch. But I was like, I'll get in there with swimming, because I was an athlete. They gave me grants, and they were like, he got accepted, because I didn't get accepted on the first time. And so I get up there for a recruiting trip, and then you know, I was like, actually, I don't know if New York's my place. I don't know if this is where I want to be.
Oh, interesting.
But I end up, I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of what question was asked.
Well, no, in terms of like your choice to go to college,
was it because of theater?
Was it to actively pursue a theater career?
I wanted to go to college because, you know, my parents were like, that's the thing to do, to get higher education, you know.
Sure.
I wanted to still be an actor, but I just kind of, and I was optimistic about it. I knew that I could do it, or thought that I could do it, but I was also like, I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
So I went to college, and I just picked, you know, I picked a major because I had to, which was business. And,
not a bad major, by the way.
Useful.
Yeah.
Useful.
I just wish I drank less during those times and remembered what I was taught.
Sure. Oh, there you go. Right. There you go. I'm curious, like the way you described your childhood, it does, like your parents, how did they view like arts? Obviously they were supportive of you going to that school. Obviously the way you've said, you know, the way you've talked about how they were like, yeah, pursue it, but always maybe have a fallback. Like how did they, obviously they were supportive, but like how did your family view your artistic endeavors?
You know, I think, you know, I think my parents were just, I'm so fortunate that they were just very supportive in anything that I wanted to do. You know, my family was very big on athletics, you know, and so that was always something exciting for my dad. My mom was integral in helping me, you know, get good at swimming and be able to get into a bunch of other schools I probably wouldn't have, you know, gotten into without that.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, real quick, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Just so
I got two younger brothers. I'm the oldest.
Two younger. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm the oldest and the smallest.
God bless your mom for having 3 boys.
She wanted it, man.
She got it.
She wanted all boys, dude.
She got it. Wow. That's awesome.
Wow.
So you're in college, your parents are supportive. And then, so what, you know, because what Bradford was saying earlier, a lot of times when we talk to people, they have the beginning in their head that, hey, I want to be an actor. So this looks fun, just like I did. This looks fun. I want to be on TV. Movies look cool. And then we have the end result of maybe being in a movie or TV, but the kind of the middle ground is always, you know, what door can I go through? Is there someone to come into my life that's going to help me or guide me this way, make a right turn, make a left turn? So where was that for you? Was it in college where someone said, hey, go out to LA, or hey, go to New York, or hey, go here and try this?
Yeah, it was in college. I think it might have been my sophomore or junior year in college. They started filming a show, Army Wives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they started filming a show, Army Wives, in Charleston.
That's
and I was with a modeling agency at the time, and my agent was like, "Hey, this casting director is doing a workshop. You should go meet him. It'd be good for you." And so I did, and he loved me. And like within like a couple months, he brought me in for Army Wives for this like little 5 and under, so 5 lines, and so I the casting office, since the film industry was so small and so new there, the casting office is on set. Where the production is. And so I go there and I do my like 4 or 5 lines, and the casting director, Richard Futch, is like, "That's great, man." He's like, "I think you got it. I'm going to bring you over to meet the director right now." So he brings me over to the director, and he just finished directing a scene. And I was like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Johnny." And I reach my hand out, and he's got his hands crossed, and he goes, "Do the scene."
Oh gosh.
And I looked at the casting director. And I was like, "Is he kidding?" I was like, "He's like, do the f***ing scene!" Yells at me, and I was like, "Ah!" And I just spit out all my lines, and he was like, "Oh, great, man, you got it, kid." And so that was my first. That was my first.
He was just kind of messing with you, or is that really?
Yeah, that's funny.
Totally messing with me, but like
Amazing.
Interesting. Fire. But
did you work with Burgess Jenkins?
Burgess Jenkins? No.
He was on Army Wives for a while. I worked with him at Y&R for a couple years, but he was in Army Wives also. So.
Was that a Lifetime show?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
Seamus Dever did it.
Seamus did, yeah.
Yeah, I met Seamus through acting class years later out here. I didn't know him during Army Wives, but him and I connected that way. But yeah, I didn't know he was on General Hospital.
Yep.
Yeah, for a fun 6, 7, 8 months somewhere in there. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So after Army Wives, what happened next? How'd you get out to LA?
So I did a couple co-stars on Army Wives, and I met this guy named Paul Wesley, and he had like a recurring, and him and I hit it off. We were joking around, and I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "Is this what you do for a living?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How do you do that?" He's like, "Well." He's like, I got an agent and a manager, and then they send me out on auditions. And I was like, okay. I was like, you don't have any other jobs? He's like, no, this is it. I was like, okay. And that's all I needed to know, And so I had I think a year and a half left of school at that point before I graduated. So I was like, I'm going to graduate and I'm moving out to LA, and I'm going to found the acting school out here. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
So you came out to LA. Did you know anybody out here for any advice, or did you have an acting teacher set up or a place to live, or were you just like, hey, I'm here?
I moved out with my best friend.
Okay, cool.
He went to the same art school as me. So, we were very much into into acting. And then he actually got more, involved with behind the camera and felt that he liked, being behind the camera. But we moved out together. We had one mutual friend that was from Laguna Beach. And we're like, oh, we know someone in Southern California.
Perfect.
So we stayed at his family's house for a couple of weeks, didn't have an apartment, no network really. I had a school that I had looked up that I was like, this is the school I want to go to, which was, it was a Mesnick acting school, Elizabeth Mesnick acting studio. And so, we found a place within about 2 weeks, just driving around, North Hollywood. And then,
that's my old.
And by the way, Laguna Beach is 70 miles from Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly.
So not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, we were enjoying it so much down there. Like our buddy's dad was like, "You guys need to get an apartment. Get out and look.
Get out."
You think?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So
one of the nicest places in the world.
Yeah.
And you just landed there. Then you're going up to North Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's
welcome to LA.
A bit of a shift.
Big transition, man.
Not just in terms of like surroundings, but temperature.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're probably used to some heat being from South Carolina.
Yeah.
So at least maybe it's a drier heat, but it's hot.
Yeah.
It's too hot.
I mean, you go from like perfect 77 degrees year round with a nice breeze coming off the ocean to like, oh, it's 97 degrees outside of North Hollywood.
Right.
So when was this?
At midnight. It's 97 degrees at midnight.
I know.
Yeah.
So Johnny, what year was this?
I moved out here September 6th of 2009.
Oh, wow.
Okay, great.
Yeah. September 6th, 2009. And then I started acting school in October out here. I was going to class 2 times a week and, did a 2-year Meisner program. And that was kind of my first community.
Awesome.
Outside my best friend and I.
Right. So repetition.
Yeah. Repetition.
Oh, I love repetition.
You're so stupid.
Repetition.
I love repetition. Who says that?
I love repetition.
Oh, it's great. It is a
great way to just loosen up and get your inhibitions out too.
Yeah. I needed that. 'Cause all I knew was how to be on stage and like, I feel comfortable on stage, but I didn't know how to be comfortable being on stage, being truthful and really being myself. And so, it broke down a lot of barriers. So I'm really grateful.
Absolutely. But at that point you weren't going out. You didn't have representation or anything yet.
No, but pretty soon after, man, I found out about Actors Access and LA Casting. So, man, all I did acting classes. And then when I was home from that, I was on Actors Access and just self-submitting to everything that I could.
Yeah.
For our listeners, Actors Access is a website where you kind of upload your headshot, your resume. If you have representation, they use that profile to submit you electronically for projects. But if you don't have a rep, there are still things that you can submit. Like if somebody that doesn't want to go through agents, that's maybe non-union, they can put their their grad film, or they can put stuff up there for actors to submit themselves, so you can kind of work without representation. Often it's unpaid or non-union, but it's still things to do. So yeah. And that worked for you?
It did, well, I mean, I wasn't getting paid gigs, but I was like, I'm going to build my reel, because I had heard it's like, okay, in order to get, a paying job, you need to have an agent or a manager, but in order to get an agent or a manager, you have to have a paying job.
Right.
And then, but also you have to give them the tools in order to, submit. So, those tools were, good headshots and a reel and, resume with some stuff on it and training. So that was my mindset. Like, I'm going to do this. So like I built a reel over the first 2 years and, and then I feel every actor's story is so different. There's no blueprint for one actor, but yeah.
Well, I mean, there isn't, but there is a common path that we see with people for sure, and
self-starters, being diligent.
Yeah. Just
having a clear goal and going for it.
Yeah. Asking questions. Hey, what did you do? What's it? I mean, it's really laid out. I mean, if you have any common sense, you just say, hey, what'd you do? What'd you do? How'd you do this? And that's what you did. And that's great. Yeah. That you were just asking questions, go, okay, get a reel. I'll get a reel. I mean, I had friends that had come out from Nashville or Ohio, and they spend the first 2 years just trying to get a freaking headshot because it's so expensive to live in LA that they're like, and they had me to tell them what to do. And for 2 years, they didn't get anything done.
Well, that's the thing is it's very easy to move out to LA and then just kind of settle into okay, well, I'm going to work this restaurant job or whatever job to get by. And then all of a sudden 2 years go by and you haven't maybe taken many steps towards your goal. And, it depends on your mindset. It's
sure, totally.
If you're moving 100%. To LA from someplace else and you're like, oh, wow, it's so cool to live here. I can go to the beach. I can, I love the people out here, whatever. Like
there's definitely a lot of traps you could fall into.
Oh,
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
You're moving to the adult playground,
You are, sir.
Yeah,
for sure.
You seem to be a pretty motivated fellow.
Very motivated. I was also a wild one. I got kind of caught up in that for a while, but I did not let it affect my work ethic. So I sacrificed a lot of sleep.
Likewise.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun, but there were, I finally wised up, over the years and was like, I need to, like, I can't just, rely on going in 80% and expect that to win a life-changing job.
Right.
I was getting in those rooms, getting in those doors and getting to that level, but it's like, why am I, I was like plateauing, and so
sure.
You gotta, I mean, it's easy, to come out here for, a couple of years and you get caught up and you're like, holy crap. Like, like you said, Steve, like, friends didn't even have headshots after 2 years of being out here. And yeah, it's expensive, but you gotta find a way,
sure.
This is one of the most cutthroat industries there is.
Absolutely. That's why it's all mindset.
Yeah.
For that. So you started working, getting some gigs.
Yeah.
You got an agent, you got a manager or whatever. And
I didn't have any agents. I got a commercial agent after being a year out here. I booked my first audition they sent me on.
That sounds good.
I had a funny one-liner I threw in at the end, and it was risky, but they loved it. And then they brought me in, and then I got fired. Because I showed up late. I showed up and they had recast me.
How late were you?
Like 2.5 hours or so.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Why were you late, Johnny?
My girlfriend's birthday was the night before, and
Johnny,
I may have been irresponsible.
Wow. Was that a wake-up call for you?
Yes and no. It didn't really change my behavior too much, but I never showed up late again. I'm always 30 minutes early to everywhere I go. I've never been late to any other project.
I have a pit in my stomach just listening to that.
Oh gosh,
dude,
Was that the worst?
Did your agent drop you?
No.
Wow.
They kept me around. I made up a story that I just overslept. I didn't tell them why I overslept. I was like, I slept through my alarm and my pillow fell on my phone and didn't hear it. And
Oh wow, that was really fleshed
phone.
out there.
Yeah, that was a great
pillow fell on my phone.
You're better off saying I was rock climbing and I fell.
wasn't rock climbing at the time, or else.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
man.
I didn't get theatrical representation or television and film representation for those listeners until probably like 2.5 years I'd been out here. I did a play, Dog Sees God, and one of my former acting teachers, saw me in it, and he emailed his manager unbeknownst to me, and then he was like, okay, I'll meet him, and then linked us together, and I was like, holy crap, I have a meeting with a rep.
Yes.
And so I did this play, and I had a meeting with a couple managers, and then I met with him, and I was like, this is my guy. And then I canceled the ones with the other managers, and he's actually still my manager today.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But I didn't get an agent until another year or so after that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't. If you have a good manager, you don't necessarily need
yeah.
an agent because they're getting the breakdowns anyway and opening the doors and making the calls for you. And a lot of times, that personal connection, they're fighting for you more than a regular agency would anyway, because the agency's fighting for 20 guys who might look like you, as opposed to just your manager. So
exactly,
definitely a benefit there. So you started going out on stuff, booking some things.
Yeah, I started, he started sending me out on some pretty big projects. I think one of the first big ones he sent me out on was Noah, the one with Russell Crowe and
yeah,
what's her face, and I was just like, holy, this is big leagues,
Right, yeah.
But at the same time, I had met this guy at the place I was bartending at, and this is a funny story. He was the creator of this television show. And I had come into work intoxicated that day, and
I see a running theme here.
Yeah, I've made a lot of changes now.
Where did you bartend at?
I was at Houston's in Santa Monica.
Okay, yeah.
Second in Wilshire. So that was my first job. I was waiting tables, and then a bartender position opened up, and they put me in there.
When you said bartender, all of a sudden I was like, I can picture you behind a bar somewhere.
Dude, I've been in all the hot spots, man.
Okay. All right. I like to drink, so that works.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll go through all my bars that I've worked at later. See if maybe you've seen me there.
Yeah.
So I came into work. I got to work early, like a few hours early, and I went to one of the neighboring bars and I was planning on having a couple beers, but that turned into a lot more. So I come into work, I mean, like 3 sheets to the wind. Like I'm still conscious, but like I'm stumbling a little bit and got some slur words.
Oh,
and
gosh.
This is a no drinking policy kind of institution. And for the first hour and a half, no one noticed, but then I was pouring myself beers at the tap, and I was like just being like
a little too
full
loose.
bar, and I'm like going and talking to everybody at the bar. And this one guy, he's there with his girlfriend at the time, and I remember vaguely talking to this guy, but I remember talking about acting. And long story short, like I get called upstairs, and I'm sat down with both managers, and they're like, Johnny, like, what's going on? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you got to go home. And I'm like, you serious? And they said, yeah, you got to go home. And so I went home, came back the next day, they fired me. A month later, I get a text message out of the blue. Says, hey, Johnny, this is Matt Arnold. We met at your job. I want to bring you in for that show I was talking to you about. I have no recollection of this whatsoever.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, Matt, so good to hear from you. Like, here's my email, send me the sides. And so I ended up going in on this show, and it was non-union and NDA, super hush-hush. And so my manager's like kind of like guiding me through this, but we're like, we don't know what this is. And it ends up turning out to be this show that gets picked up by NBC and put in their primetime slot. So because of that, I got this bunch of exposure, and then that helped me get agents. And then I had a pilot season after that. which I didn't know what that
Sure.
was.
What was the name of the show?
Siberia.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I think I read a little bit about this. This was like framed as a reality show, but it was always scripted, but they let the public believe that it might not be.
Yes, that was the idea behind it. And they were even like putting fake articles up in Wikipedia about people dying with this show, filming of this show. So it was really kind of a unique concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a show built on lies. It's amazing.
Yes. Aren't they all though?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Is it Hollywood? I mean, that's what Hollywood is. That's amazing.
But was that a fun experience though, being a part of that kind of phenomenon, if you will?
Kidding me, man? I got paid to act and I got to travel, and I'm like, it was.
Were you
awesome.
Were you in Siberia?
No, we were in
Chatsworth,
Winnipeg, Canada.
Chatsworth.
Have you ever been to Winnipeg?
No, but I've been to Chatsworth.
Yeah, no. So Winnipeg. Okay, wow. All right, so you went somewhere cold at least.
Yeah, well, it was. We went on the tail end of summer, so it was really hot then. But then you have the season switch, and then we came back in February, and holy cow, dude!
Yeah, you never felt cold like that, have you, buddy?
Bone chilling.
That now for people from the South, when they go to a place like that, they know why it's called bone cold.
Oh man.
Because you're freezing to death inside. Your bones are cracking.
You can't understand how cold it is until you're in
That's why, I mean, but you sit next to a fire and you drink. That's the best part of it.
That's not a sport.
And also most sets don't condone that when you're filming outdoors in that weather. It's
like, yeah, for sure.
Parkas, throwing you in the van, keep the heat on.
Yeah.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit. Tell us about how you got your audition for General Hospital, because we got to talk about GH a little bit, or people will tune out.
Yeah.
But not really. But so how'd you get the audition?
Well, I was I think it came up end of November. I got notification that it was for like a major recur. And I had been in for Mark Teschner a couple times years prior. But man, I was so shocked that he was bringing me in, because I thought the last time that I was in there, I was like, this office is never calling me back in again. That was
really?
the worst audition I've ever done,
Oh no.
Which I've said that many times before, and then actually booked the job.
Sure.
So I
sometimes
still,
we're not our own best judges. Yeah.
I have no gauge on what's good acting or not, but so I was excited to go in, and I was having a good year. I was working the most in that year, not necessarily the biggest roles I'd gotten, but the most consistent work. And, so I felt confident. I was confident in the audition room, which, is so huge, because if you have any insecurity or doubt when you walk in there, they smell it, it's like, sorry, next. They let you do the audition, but so I get this, I get the audition, and I go in, and Mark, he's got all of his Emmys lined up in his office, so it's a little intimidating.
Lined up.
It's a
freaking credenza with 27 Emmys on it. When you lined up,
it's unbelievable.
It's it's ridiculous.
And it's like no matter how kind Lisa and Mark is, like when you walk into that office and the door shuts, you're like, oh man, you get a little hair stand up, and you're like, I gotta, buckle down. And but I was in a zone, man. I just finished working on Westworld, and I just shot like a mini series before that, so I was having a lot of consistent time in front of the camera, and I was having, some success in the audition room, and that really builds the confidence.
Sure
so
does.
I went in there, man, and I was like, I know how to, my preparation was and process was like dialed in. And I was non-judgmental of the material, and just was like, this is me. I'm Brando Corbin, and, I got dialed in, and I went in there, and I gave a really good read. And I knew about 2/3 through, I was like, I'm getting called back. And because I had just a really dialed in connection with Mark, and he and at the end he's like that was fantastic. He's like, I'm gonna bring you into producers tomorrow. How's that sound? And I was like, that sounds great.
Sweet.
And then they ended up pushing it back the following week. And I came into the room. I think there was like 5 other guys reading for it. And I was number 3 or 4. And I was just zoned in. I'd worked it and was really, finding new layers to this scene. And I go in and I see Frank in there, and 5 or 6 other people in there, and then Mark's in the back, and then I'm reading with Lisa, Mark's assistant, and I was just like, hey, nobody else is here. This is just me and Lisa. And
what scene was it? Who was Lisa supposed to be?
She was supposed to be Carly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and so it was. It was, it wasn't the scene, I don't think, from the actual,
Sure.
side that made it on there, but
Yeah.
it was an up and down scene, and some, there's some high anger moments, and then some moments where you kind of get to like show a little sadness, a little heart tear.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt good about it. And I walked out of that office, and I was like, it's gonna be hard not to pick me. And that's not something, you experience a lot, at least in my experience, when you walk out of an audition. It's usually like, I have no idea.
That's what I love about the audition process at General Hospital. And, obviously my audition there was years ago now, but it's nice to hear that they're still doing that, doing the in-person callbacks, because, I'm not sure what your process was for like booking Westworld, but like sometimes you don't see anybody. You submit your own tape. They're asking for a tape, and there is no callback anymore. They're casting off a tape. And even if you do go in for the casting director, you're not meeting the director. You're not meeting the producer. You're taping with the casting director. And then and the callback is basically whoever the casting director sends the tape of to the producer. Like
Right.
you're not meeting people anymore. And it's less of I used to love to audition because of that. Auditioning is less fun these days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and especially now, it's becoming even more, they call it eco-friendly, where, like everything is Zoom and
right.
And, tapes.
Even this dumb podcast.
Yeah. Nothing is in person.
I miss you. But I'm with you on that, man. I love being in the room. I love being in the room because you get to connect with that person in front of you. Yes. It's much harder to do over a screen. And then also, when you're in the room, you have the opportunity that maybe the director's there, or the casting director will give you a redirect.
Sure. Right.
So like, I like what you're doing, but like, hey, let's fine tune this a bit. And that's fun. That's where the play is.
Well, that also lets the director know that you're a decent trained actor, because you can take direction.
Sure.
And like,
let's be honest. Let's be honest. You do a self tape, you can do it 100 times till you get the performance you want. Right.
Sure.
You ain't doing that in the room.
No.
Right.
You got one time.
Right.
And a lot of those times when the producer, director, casting director, whatever, sometimes, but sometimes there's just something about somebody that you can't get from a tape.
Totally.
Right. Like if I meet you in person and I'm like, wow, there's something interesting about this guy, which you're never going to get from a tape. Right.
Well, and the thing is, what is so frustrating is that, most of the people that are making these decisions, happens really fast. And so a lot of, some, if it goes to a network, they're not necessarily creative people. So oftentimes what you bring into the room, it might not be exactly what the director imagined, but they're like, oh, that's an interesting choice. So, okay, that's great. Let's try this. And then they get what they want, and they're like, oh, all right. So not only is this person talented and brings their A game, but they're also directable. And that's the person I want to work with, versus like watching a couple tapes and you're like, oh, that guy's really interesting, but that's not really what I want. Oh, this guy actually did exactly what I want, but you might miss out on the better actor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's frustrating. You know,
that is frustrating.
So, anyway,
all right. So
you booked the job, and now you're here.
Yes.
Yes, I booked the job, and I'm in Port Charles.
Okay, so I don't watch the show, and I have to ask this question: who the hell is Brando Corbin? I'm dead serious. I have no idea who you are.
Yeah,
well, it's funny. I looked it up, and it's like Brando Corbin is the child of this person. I'm like, who the heck is that person?
Yeah. So do you know who you are?
I'm still figuring that out. A little bit.
Okay,
In
sure.
real life and in
Very
Port
good.
Charles.
Right, right.
You know,
So
my-
who's kid? Wait, your cousin? Are you a cousin of somebody?
I am.
How you related to Sonny?
You lied about being Dev's dad, right?
So Gladys is my mother. Do you know Gladys? Okay. Do you know?
This is when our listeners start screaming
At us, yeah, because they
their device.
they go, they don't understand how we don't know this stuff. So the only reason I know Gladys is because I met her when she was working on the show.
Did the
Gladys
Pips come
is
with her?
who? The Pips? No, the Pips aren't with us.
Oh, okay. The Pips are not with us.
Gladys is my mother.
Okay.
And she worked something out with Sonny, where Dev, played by Ashton,
Yeah.
you know, he's like I guess Ashton helped save Sonny, and was
Sure.
it you as well? And so
Jason doesn't need any help. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Thank you. Dev didn't do anything for me. Thank you so much.
Don't kill me.
Yeah, thank you. Dev didn't do anything ever for me. Thank you. Wait,
So-
but hold on. But Gladys isn't what she had something to do with Mike, right? Mike at some point.
Yeah, well, I think were they together at some point?
I'm
I don't
asking
know.
you.
Man, I don't know. I'm figuring
I
it
don't
out.
freaking know. Come on, man.
I just
Know your
I show up-
backstory.
I show up in Port Charles.
What kind of actor are you?
I show up in Port Charles to tell them that my mom has been lying. I'm not dead, so this can't be my son.
Right.
What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But Max, Sonny's dad, and I,
Yeah.
he
Mike.
used to-
Yeah, Max. Yeah.
yeah,
Max
I'm like
did.
a removed cousin from the Corinthos.
Okay, great. So you're his cousin somehow.
Yes.
And guess what? We're gonna get a whole detailed description in the comment section for
In
sure
all caps.
when this show's on YouTube.
In all
Please.
caps.
You stupid idiots. Here's the backstory. So we'll get a whole family tree.
In terms of doing this kind of material, obviously, you know, you've got 40 some odd credits on your IMDb. You've done a lot in front of the camera. But in terms of preparation, in terms of material, amount of material, how are you finding it?
Man, for the first 3 months,
Yeah.
every time I was showing up on set, it felt like I was showing up to fight.
Interesting.
I was out of my element because I am, you know, I'm used to doing, you know, we might shoot 12 pages in a day, and I got 3 or 4 of them, and we'll shoot that 3 or 4 pages for 3-4 hours, you know.
Sure.
So I mean, moving to this medium and the amount of material and the amount of time that they shoot it was, it's been challenging, and
Sure.
Especially when you have, you know, multiple days in a row, and it's like you got 25 pages, 31 pages, 22 pages, and they're all in a row, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, you know. And
Yeah.
and it's been, you know, I think I've worked that muscle some more, and then also a big thing is letting it go, because, you know, we only get 1 or 2 takes maybe.
Right.
And
You can't be too hard on yourself.
yeah, it's hard to, you know, the effort is always there, but sometimes it's just like, like this, I just got through that one, you know, and you can't let that affect the next scene, because you got 6 other scenes after that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll drag you down if you do, for sure.
Yeah. So it's been challenging, dude. It definitely, I was nervous. I was prepared, you know, listening to some friends that are in some soaps, and then my manager who's had a lot of clients on soaps. He's like, man, they work fast. Know your lines. That cannot be an issue. Show up to set, know your lines.
Right.
And I think there's only been like 1 day where I felt like underprepared on my lines.
And that's a terrible feeling.
It's terrible, man.
Yeah.
Especially when you get a lot of them. And
Listen,
You just feel so exposed, and it's like, and if you're up there unprepared, there's no way to fix it.
No. And especially, first of all, you're Bradford, you're right. It is the worst feeling. Never be underprepared. And especially now that we're back post-pandemic. It's not post-pandemic, but we're back. And especially now when we don't have a lot of time for error at all.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's got to be on their A game all the time now, like 100%. So, so what, besides the speed, what else did you find challenging? Because obviously the cameras aren't as close as they normally are. They're a little laid back. Do you feel more comfortable? Do you feel,
No,
confined at
it's
all?
it's different because usually you work with one or two cameras maybe, but on this show there's 4 cameras on you at all time. But the distance is kind of comforting as opposed to having that extreme close up and it's right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're covered at all angles, so it kind of cancels out that comfort. That I think really just the pressure of having such minimal number of takes, where I'm used to kind of like, all right, there's time to rehearse and run it, and then and then you get a couple takes, and if it's like you don't got it right then we're gonna get it as many takes as it needs,
right?
Yeah. With, not burning through all the time in the day, but I think that was the biggest challenge and the biggest pressure. And then also coming into a show with guys like you guys have been on the show for a while, and it's like, all right, I don't know anybody, and like I don't know the 45 years of General Hospital history. Like it's a lot. And so you're kind of learning on the fly. You're learning the storyline.
56 years.
Yeah. It's 56?
56 years. Yeah. That's the only fact that we both know about General Hospital.
Now I know that.
Now you know. Yeah. Now you know.
Yeah.
April 1st, 1963.
So,
there you go.
But has there been, now that you've been there a little bit, what are you enjoying about the process? Like, because there is that element of, I mean, you've been in the theater, you know what it feels like to be doing something, live, if you will. There's an element, because we're going so fast, because that there's an element of that to what we do, which I find very exciting and more exciting than doing single camera. Have you been able to find that energy yet and enjoy that energy yet?
Absolutely. Well, the irony is those things that inflicted a lot of fear in me about this, or a lot of like discomfort, are also the same things that I've grown to be like, this is awesome, because it makes each take, each moment so important and so precious. And it's like theater, so there is that like bit of adrenaline where it's like, hey man, this is it. You get one take, maybe 2 takes, but it's like, we're going. So let's get in it and be dialed in. So I love that about it. And I love the speed at which we go too. We can, it's like you get so much done, and it's just, the fluidity, like there's no big breaks in between camera setting. It's like, we might have to roll over to another stage, but it's quick. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun thing, is if you have a good run of scenes, 4 or 5 scenes where there's an arc in those scenes, it sure is great to just keep one right after another and just go, because you're warmed up, you're ready, you're in the moment, whatever. I can't even imagine, it's like, I have such great respect for all the film actors who can sustain that type of emotion for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like you're just doing stuff like every day, just waiting your trailer, and then it's your turn, then you're waiting again. And that was tough for me when I went to do some films. That was the toughest thing for me, is like, I'm ready to go. Let's go. I'm good. 1, 2, 3 takes. That's all you're getting from me. Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't do 100 takes, nor do I want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nor do I want to. So, but yeah, it is fun. It sure is fun if you get that good run of scenes. And I know you've had some too, because you've been working with Maurice and Laura and Kelly, so you can stay away from Sam and Carly. I'll just tell you now. And then, and so I know you've had some good stuff, because I've seen it just from being in the studio. So that's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. And
doing a great job.
You haven't been around that long, but we still had scenes together, which was fun.
Yeah.
And our
my new friend Johnny in the gym. I'm gonna throw a left hook like this.
Dude, and our scene was so good it made it into the primetime promo, bro.
Yeah, I know, you guys are famous.
And then they haven't put us back together yet.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Bradford at this point doesn't care who he jumps on. He's like, Jason who? Jason who?
Everybody's got a strong back. I can jump on anybody. It's fine.
It's gonna be Johnny and the Jackal podcast next.
JJ.
JJ podcast.
The JJ show.
Yeah, right. So that's awesome, dude.
Well, hey man, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, really are.
And you know, the combination of your work ethic, you're a great personality. Part of like being on our show is meshing with everybody, and you're a wonderful guy. And so, because there's guys that come in like in similar kinds of roles, you know, that are jerks.
Enough
and they don't last.
Enough said, Bradford.
So you're doing great.
Yeah,
well, I appreciate it, guys. And you know, truly, man, it's you know, it's really been like a warm set. Like, people are super helpful. You know, Steve, you've run lines with me before. Bradford, we were running line in our one scene beforehand too. And I don't know if that's so much for you, but I was like, they're doing this for me because they know that I'm the new guy. They know how hard this is. You know, coming into being like this, being your first time on a soap. So I credit a lot of me still being on the show to you guys, and kind of like, and helping me along and being so gracious. So I appreciate you guys.
Of course,
Thanks,
man.
man.
But
That's very nice.
also, like, we love what we do, and we want to make it the best it can be. So you know, it's not charity, dude. It's being part of the process together. That's the fun, right?
Yeah.
It's creating together, and you know, like, it's more fun to have more people collaborating. So
yeah,
working on the scene, that's part of the fun.
And I think you're in a place, and I don't know about other sets, but for the people who come in, we want you to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't want you to fail. I mean, we want you to freaking kick ass.
Yeah.
You know, because we want people who can freaking act. We want people who are professional, serious, come in, do their job, the fans love. That's awesome for us. That's awesome for our show. So,
and most of us run lines together. When Steve and I have stuff, we always run it. You know, so it's
absolutely.
We all putting out the best product that we can put out benefits everybody. And, you know, you got to be a team player. And part of being a team player is doing the best that you can do, because that's what you're in control of, right? So,
and you're only as strong as your weakest link. So
totally.
Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Totally.
So,
well, dude, thank you for doing your first podcast ever with us. Yeah. And
nice.
in my phone, you're Johnny Brando, not Johnny Wactor. Sorry.
How is it having actor in your name?
Man, Johnny Wactor, the actor. I mean, imagine the fun that casting directors had with that, man.
Yeah. Well, dude, the thing was, when I saw your email, I go, what? That's weird.
I didn't know your last name till today either.
Yeah, why would he have actor in his email? That's weird, man. All right.
His name's like Johnny West. Johnny West actor. Johnny W actor is what I thought, or something like
Everyone
that.
Everyone thinks that, man. I was waiting tables my first year out here, and this guy, you know, I was chatting up. He was like, "Oh, so you an actor as well? You know, you're waiting tables in LA?" And I was like, "I am." He's like, you know, and we had some good rapport. And at the end of the meal, he was like, "Well," he's like, "What's your last name? I'll make sure to look out for you on the big screen." And he goes, and I was like, "Wactor." And he just dies laughing, like loses it. And I'm like, "What's so funny?" He goes, "You don't get it? You're a waiter and an actor. You're a Wactor." And I was just like, my world crumbled.
Too late to change it now, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Too late.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, guys.